Miles is obviously my group partner. We're going to start with a little guest speaker, actually. I've been told he gets lost. Miles is looking for him right now. Anyways, before we start, I'm going to ask that you guys could just close your eyes. I'm going to read this quote that we have from page 98 of Cody's book. The most fundamental application of begin with the end in mind is to begin today with the image, picture, or paradigm of the end of your life as your frame of reference for the criterion by which everything is examined. You can keep your eyes closed if you want. Just want you to think about right now what you're doing. We're college students. What do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years?
All right, you young whippersnappers. How's it going?
Hey, excuse me, sir, who are you? What are you doing here?
Oh, take a look. Got the red hair, the Westmont student. Who do you think?
You're Chucky and Lost?
No, I'm you.
You're me?
Yeah, that's right. I'm Connor.
That's crazy.
Any question, any wisdom you need, any guidance, just let me know. Let me know I'm here for you.
So what are we up to, man? How are we doing?
Well, actually, I was just looking for the bathroom. Just got lost, and these buildings look quite different.
Yeah. Dang. So, where are you? Are you in the same bar room?
Well, let's take a few steps back. After graduation, I got fired from the trapeze school, and haven't really seen it up since then, and been living in this sweet old Honda van down State Street, hanging with the boys, doing some, fun things, and just floating around like that little piece of dust right there.
Wow. I'm still in the van.
Yeah. So you can choose to follow me or take a split.
All right.
See you later.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. I think I'm gonna go take a cold shower and think about my life. All right, you guys. That's our little skit. Thanks for putting up with it. Real briefly, we just wanted to introduce the idea of just a direction. If you know me at all, you know that I like to go to the beach a lot. I like to spend my time slacklining. And the primary word in that is slack, just slack, not doing anything. It's great. But with this, we need to have a direction in our life. We can't live passively. Like how Brittany and Leo were saying, we need to be proactive with our lives, not living reactively, living day by day, just being like, oh, how do I feel today? Today was kind of a bummer. I'm gonna go to the beach and not do anything. And it's these sorts of things. When we start the first chapter, I have it to begin with the end in mind. One of the first ideas that Kobe presents to us is this idea where everything is created twice. As an identical twin, this makes perfect sense to me. Just kidding. But this basic concept is that in order to make something, first we have to theorize it in our head. We have to think about, oh, what is a hat? What are we trying to do today? All right, now I've thought about this. How am I going to do it? I'm going to curve it, put it on my head, tape it all around. Thank you for this. Next time. With that, we need to be actively aware of how we are coming up with our productions. Our first creations is what he called it. The first creation would be most in our mind. The second creation would be the physical form. Whether it is physical, maybe it's just a strategy, sort of an avenue of doing something. With that, the second idea that he brings up that I thought was really important is this idea of by design or by default. What is the purpose that we're doing things in these specific ways? When we gave you guys the playing cards to make your towers, I saw, at first we were doing the typical triangle thing. Slowly I saw you guys switch to this other pattern of kind of like a square and putting it on top and kind of stacking the cards. And I thought it was interesting how very originally you guys started with not the cliche, but everyone sees a card trick like that. And then you started coming up with your own ideas. And it's just that idea of, are we falling into the world's paradigms? Are we doing our actions in all of the ways that we do things because it seems like the way that we should? Or have we put in our own personal thought, personal connection, reasoning, understanding? Have we discovered why we want to do the things that we're doing instead of just doing them because we think we should?
Yeah, so I have a handout that everyone should take one, take one, pass it on here.
While he's passing that out, I'm going to read another quote. It's a principle that all things are created twice, but not all creations are by conscious design. In our personal lives, if we do not develop our own self-awareness and become responsible for our first creations, we empower other people and circumstances outside our circle of influence to shape much of our lives by default. We reactively live the scripts handed to us by family, associates, other people's agendas, the pressures of circumstances, scripts from our earlier years, from our training, from our conditioning. I think this quote really asks us to seek the root of our beliefs and seek the root of why we're pursuing action, whether it's because we come from a family of like doctors. Do you really love medical school, or like you like helping? Like, is there something other way that you can help people outside of medicine? Are you just doing that because you're a generation doctor or something? And yeah.
Yeah, so on the handout, there's on the bottom right hand corner, there's the illustration, and this comes from the book. But Kobe uses it to illustrate the difference, kind of like what Leah and was talking about, of like the difference between the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And then these four factors, I don't know if that's the correct word, but wisdom, power, guidance, and security. And now these four things are interdependent of, and they affect what is in the center. So to go more in depth of the circle of influence versus the circle of concern, an example of circle of concern would be these common centers nowadays, which he goes into the book of like spouse, money, possession, enemies, the church, family, and how some of these actually at first seem very positive and a very good thing to have as your core and your center, but the sad fact is that these are finite things. Like the money can be burnt, it can be destroyed, your spouse could pass away, your family could pass away, you could lose your job. So when it comes down to it, what is your foundation, and how strong is that foundation, and can it be destroyed? And so then he goes into like more of a positive center, and he explains it as, or words it as, a principle-based center. And the definition of a principle is a fundamental truth that serves as the foundation of one's behavior and belief system. And so a principle is something that cannot be destroyed. It cannot be like messed with, and nobody can go inside and like, take it away from you. So an example of a principle would be like treating others how you want to be treated. And you're not going to have to be worrying if people will accept that or not. It comes down to something that's within your control, or it's within that circle of influence, and you have like your efforts can actually accomplish and be successful. So being very intentional with what that center is for you and how that relates with these four of power, wisdom, security, and guidance. So like if you were to have work or money in that center, you do get some power and some security, but it's on the lower end of the scales. So for example, like security, Kobe explains it as a scale from like being very confident or being very insecure on the lower end, and then being very secure. And so something like being kind to others, if you do that within your power every day, then your confidence and your guidance and your power is at a much higher level. And so when these four factors work together, it allows for someone to have a noble character, quote unquote. So I guess just the idea, or like the thoughts that we should have is like, what is in your center, and can that be taken away from you? Can someone outside of yourself take that away? And if that can, we should rethink that, because it really does have a huge impact on who you are and who you want to be. Otherwise, you'll be like that floating piece of dust of like, you're kind of like a nobody with no direction, and not very effective. So.
Any questions? Nate?
I've always got questions, but I want to hear one from somebody else.
You talked about the centers being things that like will pass away at some point. And so what then would a center be if it's not? I don't know. Like, is it more just like the core of who you are as a person, or like what? Yeah.
Your center is kind of your vision from where all of your actions come from. So a lot of people, like one of the common senses is your family sort of thing. So like it's very common to say that like a good father sort of thing should have his family at the center of his life, and so that when he goes to work, he's constantly thinking about, oh, am I providing for my family? When he's constantly trying to think about his wife, what he can do for his wife. So it sounds great. Unfortunately, though, if his family died in a tragic accident, he would lose his family, and so that would be gone. Or if his wife cheated on him, something like that. It's just things go crazy sometimes. But if he just holds the principle of being a good provider, staying to his commitments, he will be good to his wife. He will be a good father to his children. And it's not because his whole life is wrapped around them, but it's because he holds this good principle that just allows him to hold these other things close to him. So it's an idea that it's unchangeable. Having that at the center of your life and the center of your core values.
Yeah. So to kind of, sorry to interrupt, but to go off of that, it's like a good question to have for yourself is like, how are you going to do the task, or how are you going to do it? So instead of having your family, the actual family, be the center, but rather have it be like, how are you going to treat your family? How are you going to act towards those? How are you going to how are you going to show this love towards your family? And so that, like, and the way you express that is what can't be taken away. That is what, but the actual family itself can. So if you just have to be, it's very minute, but it does make a huge difference in how you intend to be and who you want to be. So it's more of like, how are you going to do things? So asking the like one step further, because family is a good center, but like it's just slightly off.
With the title being begin with the end in mind, is that referring to like kind of like thinking of what you wish like your older self would have told you now and like that kind of principle, or I just wasn't sure how it exactly tied to that.
Yeah, I think it's more of like having just like that deep sense of like deep confidence in who you're gonna be and that you are gonna become it, and or even something like you have that deep knowledge that God does have a plan for you, like that confidence that you are gonna become someone, and having that confidence that God created you for a reason and that you're gonna live that out. So I think it relates to confidence. It relates to these four. So security, guidance, wisdom, and power. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
I think it also relates to proactivity, and that you want to be proactive, but what are we being proactive for? In order to be proactive, we have to know what our goal is. And this chapter is very much about finding out what our goals are, and then knowing why that goal is our goal, why we want to have a good family, why we want to have a good job. It's trying to find the things that we value, because those principles will stay with us longer than those things that we try to achieve.
Thank you.